What is going on, YouTube? Lamont at large. Today we are at the Maplelawn Cemetery here in Paducah, Kentucky. We're gonna go visit some graves, tell some stories. I seen a couple interesting graves over yonder. Want to go check that out, get a little bit of a closer look at it. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Not a whole lot of information is known about the life of Charles Atkins. All we know is that he was born in 1875 in Tennessee, and for some reason he decides to come up here to Paducah, Kentucky for work, perhaps. At the time of his death, he was working at a tobacco factory here in town. Now, on May 27, 1928, Charles does what he probably normally does, which is go fishing. And he goes to the Ohio River, and there's no witnesses to what unfolded, but it appears that he possibly lost his footing, maybe he lost his balance, and he falls into the Ohio River and he drowns. Now, later on, his body is recovered. Now, you're black, you have no family, it's 1928, and you're in Kentucky. So it appears to me that this is probably going to be a pauper's funeral at best. So they take his body, which would be the normal thing to do, and you put him in a pine box, and whatever cemetery in the county that has an area for pauper burials, that's where he would go. You would get a priest. They would have a little service. You'd probably have 2 or 3 people because, like I said, he had no family. Maybe a couple of his buddies from work. They do the whole funeral thing, and then they would lower him into the ground, and that would be all. Except when they brought his body back to town, they brought it to the funeral home of a man named A.Z. Hammock. Now, I don't know if Mr. Hammock had a deal with the county where they would pay him so much money per burial. Now, he's probably the guy that is tasked with handling the body, right? And for some reason, I guess A.Z. Hammock fancied himself some kind of a inventor, if you will, of concocting new ways of preserving bodies. I don't know. He looks like he was messing around and had a crazy idea that, hey, maybe this guy, since he has no family, doesn't appear that he has many, if any, friends that are coming to claim his body, let's try a new experiment on him. So A.Z. Hammock had developed some kind of an embalming fluid that he wanted to try out to see if the body would last longer. That's the best that I can come up with for the reason of why this story took place. So he embalms Charles, and the preservative that he used to embalm him looks like it turned his body, it mummified it, and it turned it into where it appeared that it was almost wooden-like, if you will. And after his body was preserved, this guy kept him in the closet of his funeral home. So for the next about 20 years, 21 years or so, Speedy is, which they nicknamed him Speedy. I'm assuming because he was a fast guy at work. I'm not really sure. So they kept Charles, aka Speedy, in a closet at the funeral home. And after A.Z. Hammock died in 1949, his wife kind of took over the business, and he just sat in this closet. Now, people started hearing his story, and tourists were coming into Paducah to see him. Now, the Hammocks, they never charged anybody any money to see Charles' mummified corpse. They would pull that out sometimes for Halloween. They would have him kind of like in the showroom, if you will, of this funeral home. And Mrs. Hammock, after A.Z. Hammock died, she had planned on burying Charles's body. Well, I don't know exactly if she got around to it, but she would later go on to pass away. And finally, in 1994, somebody, the county perhaps, they finally gave him a Christian burial. So right here is the final resting place of Charles Speedy Atkins. And it says 1875 to 1928, lived 53 years as a pauper, embalmed by A.Z. Hammock, buried 66 years later, August 5th, 1994. So a very curious, slightly curious thing that occurred to him. They used him as some kind of a weird experiment. I have no idea, but I don't know. I'm not really sure how to feel about that. It's an interesting story, but it's kind of disrespectful also in the same scheme of things. So, well, rest in peace to Charles Speedy Atkins. We didn't know you in life, but we certainly now know of you in death. Okay, so we're going to, while the weather holds up anyways, I've seen a couple graves out in this cemetery I wanted to go check out. So let's take a walk around and see what we can find. They died in a house fire in Maysville, which is about 30 miles south of where I'm at right now. And witnesses say that I believe either the father or a family member was trying desperately to get back into that home to save these kids. And finally, the intense heat, there was just no way he was going to be able to do it. As a matter of fact, I believe somebody had to grab him to stop him from going in there. And they never did find out why the fire started. But February 23rd here in Kentucky, it's going to be very cold. And so I know that there was a kerosene heater that the family used. However, they didn't say that the fire was caused by that. But they do know that the origin of the fire was in the home living room. I love you, Mom. I hope you rest in peace and are living a wonderful life in heaven. I hope one day I can be with you. Your daughter. William and Eloise Boland were both shot and killed at their old Benton Road home on March 7th, 1979. And they were both killed by their 22-year-old daughter, Janice Hurt. Why? Well, that's a very good question, and I'd like to know myself. The only thing that I found, it was some kind of a family disagreement. It appears from the preliminary investigation that she basically killed one and then waited for the other to come home. So I'm believing that the wife was killed first, and then she waited for her dad to come home and then killed him. They were both shot with different guns. One of them was shot with a 38 caliber revolver, the other one with a 357. So they take her and her husband, Byron Hurt, down to the station to, interrogate him about this crime. And they were both administered a polygraph test. And when the test showed Janice's, or Janice, her test was deceitful. And then she readily confessed to the murder at the station then, and then they locked her up. She went to trial, and later on that year, December 6, 1979, she might have taken a deal to plead guilty, because the prosecutor originally was going to seek the death penalty. However, after everything was said and done, she was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Now, the prosecutor originally was going to go for the death penalty, but I guess they just decided to go with life. And the judge, he's the one that sentenced her to 50 years in prison. So he sentenced her to 2 consecutive 25-year sentences, right? So back in those days, when you get a 25-year sentence, you have to do 6 years before you get parole. So she at least went to prison for 12 years. Now, she is no longer in prison. I didn't see her name in the prison registry. I can't find her anywhere. More than likely, she probably, when she got out, she changed her name and kept a low profile. Maybe she got remarried. I have no idea. I don't even know if she's still alive. I don't see any obituary that would kind of match her birth date up with anybody that I could see anyways. And it's these kind of stories that, when I'm here at the cemetery and I'm trying to find information, oftentimes it turns into a 1 hour long, like, I don't want to call it an ordeal, because I enjoy looking this stuff up. But, when you look at the old newspapers, there's really, it's just the same gobbledygook as the next newspaper. This was a big crime here in Paducah. Not much happens in Paducah. It's, it's a smaller city. I don't think there's 50,000 people barely that stay here. So, a family disagreement, and this girl killed her parents. Crazy. This here's Frank Rosario and his wife Tina Rodriguez. They both drowned in a boating accident on August 21st, 2015. Them, and along with 2-year-old Xavier Lopez and 4-year-old Emma Strasser, all tragically lost their lives when their boat went over a dam and capsized. There were a couple survivors from the accident, and it appears that nobody was wearing life vests, which is, I don't ever go boating, and I don't know if it's a law, but I do know that it's very, very important that you always want to wear a life vest when you're on a boat, because I've been on a canoe out on the water and I accidentally fell in. And let me tell you, when your clothes start soaking up all that water, it's like a lead weight. It drags you down. Thank God I had that life vest on, because sometimes when people panic and they don't have a life vest, they won't know to automatically take their clothes off. But some of those dams, they'll have like a washing effect cycle that once you get stuck in that water, there's no way of getting out. These kids right here also died in a fire on June 1st, 1989 over on Oaks Road. The family lived in a 2-bedroom, double-wide trailer. And when the fire started, the parents were barely able to escape. And in the process, trying to get back in to save their kids, the father had cut his arm like really, really badly. And again, another case where people are grabbing this guy from him going back into that fire. And Daniel Mitchell Tucker, he was 3 months old when he died. Cammie Jo Tucker, she was 15 months. And David Michael Tucker, he was 3. Cause of the fire was faulty wiring. That surely don't look good, and it's coming my way. I'm guessing the storm is probably going to be over my head within the next, I'm guessing about 20 minutes. This was one of the monuments that I wanted to get a closer look at as I was driving by. This is Robert Chester Cherry and his wife, Lynn. And he was a mayor of Paducah, Kentucky, quite a popular mayor. He was elected 3 times over for a 4-year term in each one. And his wife over here looks like she was a florist and had a little business here in the area. She was the first president of the Kentucky State Florist Association. It says right here, this is, I don't understand this. It says, passed in ice storm, married December 26, 1944, until death did us part. So I don't understand the past in ice storm. I'm out of here, hitting the road. I don't trust them clouds over there. You hear all those birds chirping in the trees right there? I could stand here for 3 hours just listening to that. Love them birdies. In future videos, I promise that I'll do a better job at telling more stories at the cemetery and doing longer videos. I've been constantly chasing myself the last 6 months, and the problem oftentimes with these videos is some areas a wealth of information, other areas not so much, and I have a lot of video that I gotta go over and edit, and it is quite a bit. I was looking for a particular grave of a very catastrophic story that occurred here in Paducah quite some time ago, but I got to start heading up north towards probably St. Louis, or maybe I'll just head straight to Kansas City. I don't know yet. It remains to be seen. Live, but not live, but still alive by the grace of God. Lamont at large. I'll try to come back to this cemetery to finish up the job. I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.